We're going live. Give me a second here. And you're on.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Hussein, the Domestic Class Program Coordinator at the Community Crisis Center. And I'd like to welcome you all for our Domestic Violence Awareness Month Candlelight Vigil tonight. We've experienced the most unusual 19 months of our lives due to the global pandemic, which impacted most of us in many ways. While we were already dealing with this global health crisis, communities across our nation also faced extraordinary violence. In light of such an eventful and extraordinary year and a half, it was fitting to theme that would not only be impactful to our community, but also have a more positive and a more hopeful outlook on the future. That is how our theme for this year's Domestic Violence Awareness Month came about. The Community Crisis Center for years have been a huge promoter of healing lives, empowering families, and eliminating violence within our community. While the groundwork for this was laid out by our founding members 46 years ago, our visionary executive director, who has been over the past over 40 years the director of client services, started what is now known as the Abuse Intervention Program. And I am honored to have worked with that program as well. And now that I have experience working with victims as well as perpetrators of domestic violence, I noticed that there was one topic that both parties, both sides, had interest in. It appealed to both sides, and that was healthy relationships. If there was one topic both groups requested most information on and took most out of, was what a healthy relationship looked like for them. Most people strive to build and maintain healthy relationships, and very few really truly succeed. When we educate our clients on healthy relationships, our clients, all clients, unanimously agree that by far it is the most interesting topic and the most engaging activity that they have participated in while being in a program, be it the victims program or the perpetrators program. But the interest does not stop there, and nor does the need for understanding of what a healthy relationship looks like. Just like we ask people not to be bystanders against violence and bullying, the public needs to know the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationships. We can educate our community on what a healthy relationship looks like, so when they observe an abusive or an unhealthy dynamic, they can recognize it and perhaps safely intervene and support the person subjected to this violence. Hence, during our outreach efforts this month, we discussed with our community what healthy relationships look like, what to expect from these relationships, and gave out quizzes to people so they could find out if they were in a healthy relationship or not. In the most recent and infamous murder of Gabby Petito, it seemed like several witnesses saw some abusive interactions between her and her fiancé, but only because it was physical in nature did they report it. For the public, the police body cam video released after Gabby was reported missing shows a couple who has some miscommunication issues, perhaps a mental breakdown, and a fiancé who kept it all together and was calm during the entire time. But to professionals who work in the field of domestic violence, it was like watching one scene taken from a film based on domestic violence. While I would not draw any conclusions of who killed Gabby Petito, and perhaps the death was not the result of domestic violence at all, it does give us a very clear picture of what a typical abusive relationship looks like. And unfortunately, what one of the horrible outcomes could be of an abusive relationship. Our educator for years has strived to create awareness and promote information, provide information on the importance of healthy relationships. She goes out into primary schools and colleges presenting on several topics related to domestic violence and teen dating violence. And she's reported back to us that the topic that picks the curiosity of these young minds is the topic of healthy relationships. So the idea behind such presentations is that if they're educated on healthy relationships, these students, these young children will also strive for healthy relationships for themselves, thereby reducing the number of victims and perpetrators of domestic violence in society at large. So no more people become victims of domestic violence and suffer the same fate as those we are going to honor tonight during our vigil. But before that, we're going to have our Executive Director, Maureen Manning, say a few words.
Thank you, Uzma, and thank you everyone who's here tonight, and also to those of you who are joining us online as we are virtually streaming this presentation. So thank you for being with us during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We now know that our own Department of Justice tells us 1 in 3 women, 1 in 7 men, at some time in their lives will be victims of domestic or sexual violence. At the Community Crisis Center here in Elgin, we are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to respond to those victims. Our hotline is always answered by degreed professionals. We offer shelter, individual and group counseling, support and medical advocacy, economic empowerment, and prevention education. For the last 18 months, as Uzma said, we, like everyone else on the planet, has had to pivot and respond to this global pandemic. Community Crisis Center never closed. Even in the early days of the lockdown, our hotline and our shelter remained open to serve victims. Gradually, we added back in other services as it became safe. We had to reduce the capacity in our shelter on the advice of the health department in order to create safe spacing. We took all kinds of precautions and still do. We take daily temperatures, we have masks and other PPE. We purchased acrylic barriers to keep people safe during counseling and spaced apart. And now we're even purchasing room dividers for the shelter bedrooms. In addition to the on-site shelter, in order to continue serving more victims, we did make a plan for off-site shelter as well. And new to us, as well as everyone else in behavioral health, we added a telehealth program. This helped us to provide both individual and group counseling to our clients. We found that it reduced barriers. Victims told us, I didn't have to worry about transportation. I no longer had to worry about childcare. It was a big plus. Services continue for children of victims, and services are provided for the perpetrators to help them learn to end their abusive behavior. Tonight, we gathered to commemorate those who have lost their lives to domestic violence. I'd like to call upon now our court advocate in the domestic violence program, Araceli Munoz Salazar, to share her poem.
Hello, everyone. My name is Araceli Munoz Salazar. I am the court advocate for the Crisis Center. So Part of what I do is helping victims and survivors of domestic violence get orders of protection. I go with them to court and I stay up to date on court information, and perpetrators court if they were arrested. So it's a little bit of what I do as my day job. One of my hobbies is writing, and I'm very passionate about it. In my undergrad is when I started writing, and my writing focuses a lot on my identities as being Latina, being a woman, immigration, different topics that I feel strongly about, one of which is also domestic violence. This poem specifically revolves around domestic violence, as well as alcoholism. In 2019, I won first place on the college level for a creative writing contest from University of New Mexico for one of my poems. And this poem, Ojos Tristes, which is what I will perform, will be published this year from a Latinx publishing group called Palabritas, based in Harvard University. So that will be to come. So without further ado, I will be presenting Ojos Tristes, which translates to sad eyes. The eyes are the windows to a person's soul. Some people put curtains over their windows in an effort to shut out the light of truth from peering into their eyes. Some pains are made to be put away. But pain that is bottled turns into a bottle in your hand, the curtains fall, y tus ojos tristes are exposed. You can drink away as many bottles as you can, but the burning sensation of your throat will not burn away the pain in your soul. Liquid courage, because you are too much of a coward to express or address what you really feel. Machismo taught you to suppress emotion because it makes you less of a man. Pero a qué costo? Your anger transforms into a fist, punching holes into the wall next to the head of the tear-filled eyes of the woman you swore to protect. Broken walls reflecting the broken home. I grab the bottle and break it against the floor. The fragments reflecting your ojos tristes. A qué costo? Your children fear their own home. The window blinds are prison bars. Our home feels cold since you feel so bold to dominate and suppress happiness. Now we are the ones with ojos tristes. I didn't have to be an adult to understand what is the right way to treat a woman. When will it stop? When will fathers and husbands learn to express the anger that doesn't require a balled up fist? The list goes on of people with ojos tristes. Please no more. I am tired of reliving a tired past. My eyes are now fixated permanently as ojos tristes. Thank you.
Ellie, I want to thank you so much for sharing that poem with us. It is a great way to express what is happening inside for our victims, for our survivors, and also for the abusers. So sadly, not all victims of domestic violence survive. And tonight we do want to have a vigil for those who don't survive. I have a candle and I'm going to light it. And if those of you who picked up candles as you came in, or if somebody still needs a candle, feel free to light it whenever you feel so moved. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to read. When I first started at the Community Crisis Center, the story was There are 3 women a day who die as a result of domestic violence. That was 13 years ago. In 2007 or 2008, I started doing some research, and I said, oh my gosh, it's more than that. Because there are victims all over, not just the person who was the target of the abuser, but sometimes there are bystanders. So we're going to read 15 stories tonight. They're local stories. They don't cover the thousands of women and men and children who have died. But I want you to notice the wide variety. Let's see, some of them were professionals, some of them were homeless. They range in age from 4 to 69. They are men and they are women. They are mothers, they are fathers, they are sisters, brothers, and yes, intimate partners. So without further ado, when you're ready, light your candles. And if Anaseli and Usma will come up, we will start the stories. We'll start with Karen Lotz, age 59. She lived in Barrington. She died on January 15, 2016. Karen and her husband argued about the coffee pot, which he had left on the burner. Then he went to his home office. When Karen walked into the office, her husband fired 4 shots, hitting her 3 times and killing her instantly. Her husband has been convicted of 2nd-degree murder and is presently awaiting sentencing.
Jeffrey Bragg, 58 years old, Burlington Township. Jeffrey Bragg, age 58, Burlington Township, February 14, 2016. Jeffrey Bragg died several days after being punched in the face and head by his son Daniel. While drunk, Jeffrey walked into the bathroom while his son's girlfriend was bathing, angering Daniel, who went to his father, threw an empty vodka bottle at him and punched him at least twice in the face. 3 days later, Jeffrey was found dead on the floor as a result of his injuries. While he was acquitted of both 1st-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter, Daniel was convicted of aggravated domestic battery.
Maria Desroches, 19 years old. During an argument that stretched from a late Friday to an early Saturday, Maria Desroches' boyfriend beat her with a pan until the handle broke, then stabbed and cut her 27 times. According to the police, Michael Coughlin then hid her body in the closet for more than a day. Maria and Coughlin, who had a child together, were living together in their DeKalb apartment when Maria was killed. Coughlin had earlier been convicted of domestic battery against Maria. Her body was discovered in the bedroom closet, covered with blankets and pillows, after her mother called the DeKalb police because Maria had missed work for several days and was not answering her phone. Coughlin has been sentenced to 63 years in a maximum security prison.
Laura Harrison, 30 years old, McHenry. June 6, 2016. Laura Harrison's husband stabbed her and buried her body under a pile of firewood. He waited 2 days before calling the police and reporting that he killed his wife and had tried to take his own life. In those 2 days, her husband had bought cleaning supplies and fire starters and dug a hole in the yard. Although he had been previously charged with misdemeanor domestic battery, there was no order of protection. He was convicted of murder and is serving a 40-year sentence.
Davina Delgado Rock, 28 years old, Arlington Heights, July 30th, 2016. Davina was shot fatally as she walked into their home carrying their 1-year-old child. Her husband was apparently angry with his wife, who wanted to divorce him and had repeatedly threatened to harm her in days prior, fatally shooting her as she returned home after spending a weekend in Wisconsin. The infant received a cut and bruise to his forehead as his mother fell to the ground. Her husband, Jose Delgado Rock, was convicted and is serving a 38-year prison sentence.
Mackie S. Cheshire, age 37, Melrose Park, body found in Bensonville, September 29, 2016. Mackie and her boyfriend got into an argument at their apartment in Melrose Park. During the argument, her boyfriend, Jonathan Condre, stabbed her to death. He then drove her body to White Pines Golf Course in Bensonville, about 3 miles away, and dumped her remains near the entrance. Condre is facing first-degree murder charges.
Tiffany Coughlin and Brittany Coughlin, twins, age 16, St. Charles, March 10, 2017. Angela Coughlin had moved out of the house following 2 domestic violence incidents, leaving the twins with their father. On March 10, he lured her into the house where he had just shot their daughters in the head, killing them. He then shot his wife in the knees, saying, "Now you will suffer as I have." He then proceeded to call the police, telling them what he had done, and killed himself before they arrived.
Nancy Madonia, age 58, Bartlett, May 31st, 2017. When police officers arrived at the Madonia home, they found her husband of 30 years in the kitchen with blood on his hands and Nancy upstairs, dead from strangulation. He told the police he became enraged because she was nagging him to return to work following a heart attack, and so he strangled her. While struggling, Nancy had bitten his little finger and scratched his face. Police were called by their son. Madonia's husband has pled guilty to second-degree murder.
Gail Pegg, age 76, Elgin, October 2017. Gail Pegg and her 55-year-old son had a confrontation over the loudness of the music he was playing, during which she asked him to move out of her home. When she produced a knife, he knocked her down and stomped on her head and neck. He cut up her body and took the parts to Chicago in a suitcase and garbage bags and left them in Lake Michigan and Lincoln Park Lagoon. 2 days later, he reported her as missing to Elgin police. He was charged with murder and held without bail. In 2016, Gail had filed an order of protection against her son after he had hit her in the face, scratched her, and attempted to break her neck. In June of that year, he pleaded guilty to domestic battery in DuPage County. Family said they had long warned her that having her son in her home was a danger to her.
Miriam Cruz Hurtado, age 31, and Corbin Dallas Barraza, age 4, Stone Park, September 21, 2017. Miriam's former boyfriend strangled her with his hands and an electrical cord and stabbed her multiple times in the back. When the son awoke during the attack, the boyfriend went to the boy's bedroom, strangled him, and stabbed him several times. Daniel Barraza has confessed to the murders and is being held on 2 first-degree murder charges.
Hagan, age 61, Plainfield, September 6, 2018. Earl and his girlfriend were staying at the Best Run Resort in St. Charles. Police were called to this resort parking lot where they found the body of Earl Hagan and with injuries consistent with being run over by a vehicle. His girlfriend allegedly ran over him with his own car, causing his death. She's been charged with first-degree murder.
Lydia Juarez Agbe, age 37, DeKalb, June 9, 2017. Lydia Juarez Agbe was found dead in her car in a parking lot of the Department of Human Services Center in Sycamore, where she was a caseworker. The suspected killer was her estranged husband, Antonio Juarez, who was wanted by the police on the violation of an order of protection from an incident March 10. He was also wanted on a failure to appear warrant for domestic battery issued on March 24th. The suspect was tracked to Lyons, Illinois. When police attempted to apprehend him, he opened fire, causing the police to fire back. He was killed in a shootout. Lydia leaves 2 children, ages 11 and 15.
Natalia Irma, age 55, and Roman Freed, age 69, Buffalo Grove, November 17, 2019. Natalia and her new husband were found unresponsive near their vehicle at 11:30 p.m. on November 17. Surveillance cameras showed the couple entering around 8:15 p.m. There they were immediately approached by Natalia's former husband, a resident of Minnesota. After a brief conversation, he shot both at close range several times with a handgun and then fled on foot. After investigation, a warrant was issued for Ermac's arrest. When the police in Edina, Minnesota, attempted to arrest him 3 days later, he shot himself during a 90-minute standoff. The killer died 3 days later of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Margaret Daniel. Nozada Margaret had hosted a dinner party in her Schaumburg home. During the party, the topic of death came up, and her boyfriend, Anthony Craig, became upset by the conversation and left the room, returning noticeably agitated. At about 1:30 at night, Craig called Schaumburg Police Department to report that he and his girlfriend had a fight and that both were injured. When police arrived, they found Margaret in the kitchen, not breathing, and Craig with a knife in his hand. An autopsy determined that Miss Daniel was killed by more than 20 cutting injuries, according to reports. Craig was indicted for first-degree murder. The indictment led police to re-examine the mysterious circumstances of the 2011 death of Craig's wife.
Wendy Ayon, age 33, Elgin, July 12, 2021. When a 4-year-old was found wandering around the neighborhood, the police who found her called the police. The police were able to help find where the child lived across a very busy street, McLean. A wellness check to the home revealed a younger child in Wendy's body. She had been killed by strangulation. Her husband was arrested the following day and is awaiting trial as of today.
Let's take a moment to raise our lights in honor of all of those who did not survive domestic violence. After a moment of silence, Uzma will close the meeting.
for joining us tonight and making this, again, about remembering those who have lost their lives and reminding ourselves that the fight against domestic violence is going to be an ongoing one. This year, however difficult and tough it has been for the Crisis Center, I am very proud to announce that we've still been able to build some great healthy relationships within our community with other agencies, organizations, and have strengthened our ties with our old former community members, community agencies, such as the law enforcement, our local libraries, Belgian Community College has always been a great partner for us. So thank you all. And the fight is not over, but we've got to start somewhere. And thank you for joining us.